Okay, good morning. This is Jared Bowser. We'll get into introductions in just a moment. We also have Steve Olson on the line. I wanted to say thank you for joining us as we're going to talk about training at MESA, some news and updates, and just an idea, letting you know what we've been doing since this pandemic started and some new and exciting things that we have on the horizon for you to hopefully meet your training needs, address any questions or concerns that you have as well. So before we get started, I did want to mention that in your webinar panel that you have, you should be able to ask questions. There's a questions panel in there. There's a chat panel in there. If you have any questions along the way, if you have any feedback, any thoughts or ideas, feel free to put them in there. We'll be keeping an eye on those. We'll have a Q&A time at the end of the webinar if we get any questions. So we'll be able to address them at that point in time. Okay, so what are we going to talk about? Well, like I said, we made the move to virtual training in, I believe, May or June of 2020. Since then, we've held quite a few classes virtually. We've made some tweaks and changes to our typical schedule, and I'll say that they've been going really well. So first thing we want to do after we get through introductions is we want to talk a little bit about virtual training with MESA. So if you haven't been to one of our virtual training classes already, wanted to give you kind of an overview of what your typical day will look like, what the software looks like, and generally how things work. We're going to talk about some half-day training sessions that we've created that we're adding to our schedule. They're more focused on individual topics as opposed to being, kind of hitting a few topics generally. So we'll talk a little bit about those. And we're going to talk about some new classes that are on the horizon. These are classes we've talked about adding to our schedule, so you'll be seeing those within the next few months. And then finally, we'll take a look at feedback and ideas. Before we get into introductions, I did have just one quick poll, see who's paying attention at this point. This is just a general question asking if you have participated in virtual training, maybe with MESA already, or maybe with somebody else, or if you have not participated in virtual training. Looks like just about everyone has voted. Let me go ahead and close the poll. And I'm going to go ahead and share that poll. Of course, I can't see the results. Oh, there they are. So it looks like about 13% of you have taken one of MESA's virtual training classes already. 19-20% of you have taken virtual training, and almost 70% of you have not taken any form of virtual training yet. Thank you, appreciate that. All right, so introductions. This one's actually Steve, and Steve, I lost your name, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
There's someone.
Yeah, maybe it's just in an odd order or something with those animations. Well, good morning, everyone. As Jared was saying, I'm Steve Olson, and my role at MESA is Manager of Training Services. But you know well enough that if you've been dealing with any of us, you know that we wear multiple different hats. We do multiple different things. I do have a couple of certifications that I did want to share. I am an Autodesk certified instructor. All of us MESA instructors are certified by Autodesk as instructors. It just means we take training that they tell us, how's the best way to run a course. Here's how to help best engage individuals and things like that. Also have a couple certifications in specific products like the Inventor Certified Professional, and then the Autodesk Certified Professional in Design for Manufacturing is part of their new initiative. They've kind of repackaged their certifications. They have some, I'll say, more generic ones. They're still technically in a specific product, but they're a little bit more generic, and that design for manufacturing is one of the ones I've taken recently. I have a couple other ones, but just figure I'd share a couple of those with you. My background is I've been at MESA for 12 years now. It's going to be actually 13 here at the end of the month. April 1st is my rollover date to be 13 years at MESA, pretty much as an instructor. But again, like we all do support work, we all do consulting. I see a lot of familiar names in the names of people that are attending today. Background wise, before MESA, I spent 5 years at a company called Fleetwood Folding Trailers. They made pop-up campers just like that one in the screenshot there. And a little interesting note about that picture is back when I worked at Fleetwood, they actually used their employees in their brochures. So that is my wife and I, when we were newly married back in about 2003, 2004 was probably the brochure that was in. So, that's probably about 17, 18 years ago. So there's an example of what I did and then also what I used to look like 18 years ago. So I'll pass it back over to you, Jared, so you can do your introduction.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so as I said, my name is Jared Bowser, and in the spirit of using old pictures, mine's about 2 years old now. So you can see me down there with my beautiful wife and beautiful kids. Kyla is 5, she'll be 6 in May. Emma is 3, she'll be hitting 4 next month. So Kyla's in kindergarten. What a great year to start kindergarten, but she's a trooper, and it's going really well for her. I'm a senior application engineer with MESA. I'm also an Autodesk certified instructor, and I also have my Inventor certified professional. Actually just noticed Steve's new badge, so I'm going to look at that one pretty soon here as well. I've been with MESA. I'm working on my 14th year at MESA. And prior to that, I was at Westinghouse Electric Company for a few years. Prior to that, I was with a company called IDL. They're out of Butler, PA. They did things like retail displays. So new product launches, when they had to design and manufacture the retail displays, we were directly involved with that. Okay, so let's talk about virtual training with MESA. So as I said at the beginning, we transitioned into virtual training sometime around the May or June timeframe of 2020. Since then, we've ran quite a few classes. Like I said, they've gone really well. We've learned some things along the way. I feel like we've gotten a pretty good system going now for virtual training classes. So what I want to do is just take a few minutes to talk about a typical day of virtual training, the software that we use, and maybe answer some questions that you might have or might be thinking of over these next couple slides. So first of all, what platform are we using? We're using the GoTo training platform. So part of the GoTo umbrella, you guys are in GoTo webinar right now. We're using the GoTo training platform for our classes. So you can see a couple screenshots on mine. The attendees can view my screen and the instructor screen at the same time, or view your screen and the instructor screen at the same time. And you can see the screenshot down there at the bottom, kind of a split over 2 monitors, with the left being what I was working on, the right Steve was instructing me on how to create that sketch and that table. So you can see we used the webcams as well. And we also have the panel over there on the right with some different things like being able to raise hands or being able to ask questions from the attendees viewpoint there. In addition to that, the instructors, we can see and control your screen as well. And that is going to be on demand and, of course, with permission. So basically what we've done with that is if you get stuck on an exercise maybe and you need a little bit of help, what I can do as an instructor is I can make you the presenter, or I could switch over to your screen so that I could see your screen, and I can actually take control if you allow me to. That way I can help you out. Think of it as if we were in an actual training classroom and you got stuck and needed a hand, I'd come look over your shoulder, maybe even take control of your mouse if you got yourself really stuck. And that's really the idea of what we wanted to accomplish with virtual training. This is the world that we live in now, so we wanted to make it as much like a real-life in-person training class as possible. We'll note that multiple monitors are heavily suggested. just so you could do exactly like what I have shown on the screenshot here. You can have your session of Inventor or AutoCAD or whatever software we're training on open on the main monitor, and then on your secondary monitor, you can have the go-to training session open. That way you can see them side by side, and you're not trying to switch between them.
Yeah. One tip that I will share, Jared, that I've shared with folks, if they don't have dual monitors, logging in on like a tablet or some other device that would allow them, they could log into the meeting twice. Technically, they could go on one device so they could watch the instructor screen and log in on a second one on their own, like whatever screen they're working on, if need be. So if you don't have two monitors, it's not like it's the end of the world. You still have options like maybe a phone might be a little bit of a stretch because those screens are so small, but something like a tablet. I think I even had one guy log in on a second laptop altogether. He just had sitting around the house that wasn't they just used for web surfing or whatever, and so he ended up logging in twice, just one on each device, so he could make it a little bit easier to watch on the other screen.
That's a good idea. I know I've done it with a tablet before. Never would have thought about bringing in a second computer altogether.
Yeah.
I like it. So what does the typical day look like? Typical day of our classes, they run on a 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. schedule. We do take generally a lunch break between 11:30 and 1:30. And I know what you're thinking, 2-hour lunch break, that sounds pretty good. But from our perspective, what that allows us to do is not only grab some lunch, but it also makes us, the instructors, available for some virtual office hours during that time. So what do we do with those? Well, that's if if you get stuck, or if you have more questions, if you want to discuss more about the topic that we're looking at in class, and you want to schedule a little bit of time there. So if you wanted to schedule a little bit of time, we can meet up with you on a one-on-one session and either help you out or address your questions, whatever the case may be. Some classes do use other time formats. I actually have one coming up next week for Inventor Nastran, and it's a 4-day class, and I run it from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., so just the morning session, but then the afternoon hours I have available for office hours. And for that one of the main reasons I do it with that one is because it's a little bit more in-depth, the simulation, and doing it this way just allows for the students to to get that small slice of the class in the morning, and then the afternoon, if they wanted to try to run it again, or if they wanted to try to run something of their own, they can bring it to me in a virtual office hour setting, and we can look at it one-on-one.
Yeah, and one thing also about the hours too, Jared, is we were very mindful of the fact that you have other stuff going on while you're trying to get trained as well. So if you have pockets of time when people are coming to bother you while class is going on and need certain help or certain questions answered, you can very politely tell them, hey, I got a break coming up here at a certain time. Why don't you come back then? Hopefully it's not too pressing of a matter. But we know that work doesn't stop when you're in those sessions, and we try to give you those pockets of time to keep the work going while you're trying to learn as well.
Right. So virtual classes and how they're presented, like I mentioned at the beginning, we do strive to provide an in-person experience while doing it virtually. We want to give you the feeling like you're in the room with us. So we accomplish that in a few different ways. We always want to encourage communication and encourage feedback. I don't think I mentioned it specifically on this slide, but we generally just let the students themselves control their own mute, control their own microphone. That way, if they have a question, they can just unmute themselves and ask their question. They can also use that raise hand option if they, if they wanted to put their hand up. That way, I can see it from my side and know that they have a question, or we use that to know that they're ready to move on to the next part of the exercise as well. So communication and feedback are important to us, and we encourage it throughout the class. Ask questions, participate in discussions. And as I mentioned already on the previous slide, when the need arises, we can always switch and view and control your screen if you need us to. So what can a student expect? So a day or two before the class, they'll get an email with instructions on how to register for the go-to training session. They'll also receive a link to download the data set. That will include, oh, my funny slide there got away from me. That will include instructions on how to save and prepare your data set. So basically, I typically instruct my students, take this data set download, save it into a folder on your C drive, and make sure you extract it as well. That way, when we get started in class, we can always, double check, make sure everything's good to go. But on my side, if I say open up a file from this particular folder, I'd like you guys to be able to do the same thing on your machine. So having some instructions on how and where to save those files. No sandwiches, sorry about that. I put that on there. We had one of the first classes that we did virtually. We asked all the students for feedback. And one of the students, his feedback was, this is great. It was like being in the same class as the instructor, or in the same room as the instructor, and his only negative point of that was he didn't get a sandwich for lunch. So unable to deliver virtual sandwiches at this time. Okay, Steve, you're up on this one.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been looking at recently is we've had customers for a while taking advantage of WEDNet funding. So if those of you that are in Pennsylvania, WEDNet is a program in PA that your company can sign up and apply for to get funding from the government to help pay for your training. I don't know if he'll pay for all of it, but they will pay, and that will kind of help funding for you. And we were thinking, well, there's got to be programs like this in other states. And Jared, you can go ahead and just let it all build out there. So I've done some research in the last couple weeks. There are programs in West Virginia, Maryland, Ohio, and Virginia. I did not look into New York. I don't know if we have a ton of customers up in New York, but the point here is if you're not in one of these states, look, I bet there's going to be a program for you to help get funding from the government that it may not pay for the whole class, but it will at least cover some of the expenses for class. And so the Ohio Tech Credit one, actually they have a list of credentials that they're looking for. And just yesterday, I kind of filled out a form saying, okay, these are the ones that we are that we provide, and those hopefully in the next week or so will be listed on their website. But even if you're looking, let's say you're in Ohio, you're looking at that list, you don't see MESA under a specific credential that we offer, that doesn't mean you're limited to that. So you can obviously kind of come to us and then still apply for these. For whatever state you're in, please take a look at the program. They're all slightly different. They all have their own intricacies. But in most cases, you can apply before the class or after. Those again depend, and then they'll help fund the class. Again, in most cases, may not cover the whole thing, but at least cover some. So please take a look at those. And if you're having trouble getting the links or writing them down, feel free to let me know, and I can send you the link for the appropriate state that you're in. All right, Jared, go ahead and go to the next slide there for me. Or I guess that you're talking about this one, so go ahead.
Yep. This one's me. Okay, so now that we've talked about what the training experience looks like and how the look and feel of our virtual classes are run, we wanted to talk about some new half-day training opportunities. I'm actually pretty excited about these. I think that these are great. These are focused. Let me get to the next slide so I can run through the bullet points before I talk about them all. They are focused on the individual topics. Sessions are going to run from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And of course, just with any of our virtual classes, they're going to have virtual office hours available. So if you wanted a little bit of one-on-one time with the instructor, you're more than welcome to reach out to us and schedule that. These are instructor-led classes with hands-on exercises, of course, delivered remotely. So this is similar to our full-length classes, but these are focused on one individual topic, so expect to be hands-on with exercises. Students, of course, are encouraged to interact, ask lots of questions, as always. And these are focused on the topics that you're looking for. So right now we have 4 classes that are already on the schedule. We're going to talk about those. And then we're going to take a look at maybe some other opportunities or ideas for classes that we've come up with And we're also going to ask you, maybe as you're looking through these next couple of slides, if you have any ideas for some focused training opportunities that you'd be interested in, you can use the question of the chat panel to let us know. So these first two are Steve's. Go ahead, Steve. I'll give Steve another moment here to catch back up. There he is.
I forgot to unmute myself, so sorry about that. So a couple of these are actually maybe I'll call revived classes that we offered under something called MESA U extensions. If you remember, we've had MESA U on a couple of different occasions where we've had shorter classes, and then we've kind of offered a few years back of like kind of expanded versions on certain classes, and a couple of these are those classes, and this is one of those, the Customizing Inventor's Content Center. I'd say personally, Jared, I get for about every month or so, I get a call from a customer on a support call that needs to know how to do this, and it's not the easiest thing to teach over the phone, or at least on a support call like that. But the idea behind what we're going to teach, and you go ahead and build the slide out, Jared, I got a couple animations, is what you'll learn how to do is how to create your own read-write library. By default, the libraries that come with Inventor are read-only. We can create our own read-write. We can take and copy certain families into our custom read-write library. One of the other things that we'll do is learn how to use what they call replace family template, where I can pull one out, make some changes to it, like in the example of those screws there. We color one of the heads black or whatever color we need, and then put that back in, and so that becomes now how that family appears. This is also very tightly related to things like frame generator and tube and pipe and cable and harness, because certain elements here need to be authored and published into the content center to be utilized by the tube and pipe and the frame generator, etc. So that's something else we'll learn. We'll actually go through the different types of authoring and what that means and how that works and how that's related to the content center. And then the next one, Jared, if you want to flip that one over to the next one, is the Customizing Inventor Templates. Oh, and actually, real quickly, that class there, the Customizing Content Center, if you're interested, it's already on our calendar for April 14th. So you can check out our website or reach out to your salesmen, whichever one represents you, to sign up for that one. Customizing Inventor Templates. This is another one where this is more of a topic for, say, maybe a CAD admin. Not everybody in the company probably needs to know how to do this, but it's all about getting your template set up with your title block and your borders. There's a lot of talk about styles, because styles are that drive everything in the drawing. And if you've ever get those messages where you're starting a brand new drawing, you get that warning message saying, hey, we've got these style conflicts here, we're going to use the style library. We go in and explain what that is, why you get those, how to get your style library corrected so you don't see that stuff. And then we also have a section on sketch symbols. Over the years, they've added the concept of a sketch symbol library. So we'll actually create some sketch symbols. That's one I used to use at my last job. It's just my example that I typically use. We'll create that one. We'll throw it into a symbol library and look at how to utilize that. Then also in the last couple of years, Autodesk introduced the idea of presets. There's a handful of commands, the hole, the coil, frame generator, the thread command, all have this idea of presets where I can kind of predefine common types of holes or threads or coils that I can leverage and make my life a little bit easier moving forward. So we'll spend some time talking about presets. If this is a class that you're interested in, we have it on for April 21st. So that's all I have about that one, Jared. I think the next two half-day classes are ones that you're teaching. I'll let you talk about those.
Yeah, actually, I did want to mention the presets that you talked about. Those things are pretty awesome, and like you said, they're really popping up everywhere throughout Inventor.
Yeah,
I noticed them on weld symbols the other day for the first time.
Yeah, there's a handful of locations. I looked it up. There's it's the coil command. It's obviously hole, thread, and sweep oddly enough, was one I thought kind of caught me by surprise. It's in frame generator, and then at the drawing level, yeah, it's like the weld symbol, the um, surface finish symbols, and feature control frames, which I know personally, I was doing a project for a customer that had a bunch of different feature or like the surface finish notations, and I was always doing those manually. Man, I would have loved to had that because there was about 4 or 5 of them, and so I could have just very easily leveraged that to set all 4 or 5 of those up, and just went bang, 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 and created those. So those would be very helpful.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the other 2 classes that are currently on the schedule already. The first one, actually, these 2 are both kind of a shortened version of existing classes that we already teach. And what the idea I had behind these was to give you an introduction into the environment, not a demo or a webinar setting, but an actual hands-on exercise. So we can get into the software together, work through it together. First one is Inventor Nastran, Intro into Inventor Nastran. So some of the topics that we're going to talk about, doing some pre-processing. So setting up our loads, constraints, materials. We'll talk about meshing and the importance of meshing, even contacts whenever we're dealing with assemblies, which is what that bullet point mentions. And then we'll talk about some post-processing stuff, which includes the result types and looking at animating the results and really understanding what the results are telling you and some pointers on things to look out for. I like to tell people in my simulation classes that it's easy to go in there and it's easy to get results. How do you know if you could trust the results is really the key to being able to use simulation software effectively. This class is also on the schedule. And Steve, I forget what the date is. Can you jump in and add that, please?
The simulation or course, or the Nastran course, is April 29th.
29th, thank you. The next class is Intro to Visualization. So this is going to take a look at the Inventor Studio environment. And some of the topics that we're going to cover are setting up or modifying lighting styles that are already in there. We'll also take a look at creating images and animations of your designs and what some of the things that we can do with this. So we could use this image maybe as a catalog image or a website image. Or if we're looking at an animation, same idea. We can place it on our website. We can use it in marketing. Whatever the need might be there to create a nice, pretty, clean image of your file. We'll spend some time in the Inventor visualization getting comfortable with that environment and setting some things up. This class, I know this date is on the schedule for May 4th. So if you're interested in taking that one, please look out for that one and get yourself registered. Next topic is some new classes coming soon. So these are going to be new full-length classes, so not half-day. They're going to be multi-day classes. I'm going to let Steve jump in and talk a little bit about these.
Yeah, so we have identified 3 classes that we are going to be adding to our schedule. With the ideas of some more, we're gonna give you some give you guys an opportunity to give us some feedback here in a few moments of what you need to see. But Revit MEP is one of those. We've had a Revit architecture course for a while that just basically builds the building and things like that. But we recognize that there is kind of a little bit of a convergence here, at least over the years, between, say, the architectural world and the mechanical world. And Revit MEP definitely gives us the ability to do that. If you're doing more of a, we've got tube and pipe and cable and harness that will do certain applications, but maybe those aren't quite right for running, the HVAC systems in a building, or all the wiring in a building. So that's where the Revit MEP is going to come into. Then the next one's going to be the BIM 360. Every time I seem to look at my computer, I see the word BIM all the time, and this email, that article. Autodesk is definitely doing a lot around BIM, and it's basically, if you've used, say, the Autodesk Drive or the Fusion Teams, it's basically takes that and then builds a bunch of functionality on top of that. And because there's a lot of need for collaboration, maybe you're not doing the architecture of a building, but maybe you're going to be designing maybe a curtain wall system for it, or some architectural or facade panels. We have plenty of customers that, yeah, they don't make buildings, but they make a lot of products that do. And so maybe they're going to be tied into doing or being tied into a BIM 360 project at some point. So we want to have you prepared for that. And then the last one is you've probably seen a ton of investment on Autodesk side in the CAM world. We've got CAM now built into the product design and manufacturing collection. Fusion has had its CAM or manufacturing workspace for many, many years. We really haven't had a class to kind of address that. I've been teaching CAM to colleges through a program that Autodesk has to kind of reach out to education. And so we're going to basically start taking some of the knowledge I've gained teaching those courses and turn those into a CAM course for our customers. So you might be using something like Mastercam or something like that right now. This would be a good opportunity to look at it, what Autodesk offers that's in the product that you already own, and then get some training on what that functionality looks like and how to maybe replace something else that you're spending a lot of money on elsewhere that you already have something comparable or similar that you're already paying for as well. So yeah, those are the three classes that we've kind of eyeballed. Probably say summer, maybe late summer, fall is probably where where these are gonna start popping up. We'll send out email blasts as these things hit our schedule.
Okay, thanks, Steve. All right, so now we want to get some questions, comments, and feedback from you. So if you haven't already put any questions in the question panel or the chat panel, feel free to do so. I do have a couple polls for you to take a look at. If we rewind back to the half-day sessions, I actually have two polls that I'm going to launch here. The first one, these are some ideas that we've come up with for potential half-day sessions. And you should be able to pick any or all of those that you would be interested in seeing in a half-day session. So I'll give you a moment on this one to pick through those, and then I have another poll coming up with a couple more ideas for half-day sessions. Again, you can pick as many of those as you'd like. A couple more seconds here. Okay, let's take a look at the results for that one real quick. So definitely good feedback there. Looks like over 50% of everybody want to see creating the structural documents within Inventor and multi-body part modeling in Inventor. And then half of you guys want to see frame generator and other design accelerators. So we'll talk about those and see if we can get those on the schedule as well. Let me switch to the next one. Again, same thing here. A couple more ideas that we had. So intro to Navisworks, generative design in Fusion, and then an Inventor nesting and CAM workflow. Steve, I know you're busy answering questions over there. I didn't know if you wanted to add any thoughts about the three classes on this poll.
Yeah, so basically the idea is, again, the intro to Navisworks would be like a half-day intro. Instead of taking the full 3-day, we kind of chop it down. There is actually a section out of the factory design utilities and the plant 3D that talk about Navis and how to get it to the functions it's specific to a larger workflow. And that's what we're trying to pick out and kind of give you there. Generative design in Fusion would be, that's a newer function that Fusion has where you kind of give it some loads and preserves and obstacles. I did a webinar back in December about it. And this one actually wouldn't be solely in Fusion. It would be how to start an Inventor, how to go over to Fusion, do what you need to do over there, and take your output back over to Inventor. So just because it says Fusion, Fusion is really where the calculation is done, not so much where you're doing all your work. And then the Inventor nesting and CAM workflow, again, nesting is a newer utility that you can nest, obviously sheet metal, but I'm actually working on a demo for a customer that does cabinets and how to create a routing program to route that out of a larger sheet of material. And so nesting really is tied to CAM. You can get a nest, that's great, but I need to then create the CAM program to come out of that. So that's what that class would be about. It'd be taking sheet metal components or wood components, probably do one of each, nest them, turn around and do the either the laser cut if we're dealing with sheet metal or plasma, water jet, whatever that material would be, or whichever equipment you have, or using a router, like a 2D router, to cut those out of a larger sheet of material.
Thank you, Steve. I went ahead and closed the poll toward the end of your talk there,
That's fine.
Posted the results up there. Looked like we got about 50% response for all three of those classes. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at those, responses, and we're going to, if we get enough responses, we'll get those created first, and then scheduled on our training calendar. So we appreciate that. If you have any ideas for any other half-day focused classes that you would like to see, feel free to send them over to us. You can use the chat panel or the question panel right now, or you can reach out to us at a later time, of course, just by shooting one of us an email. You can do that. Just taking a look at the questions that we have coming in. Looks like Steve's answered a few of those.
Yeah, I'll go over a couple of these here in a second, just so everybody has the answer. Let me finish typing up this one. So the first one was just I've answered some of these privately as I had time. The one was, does BIM 360 generate files that a Revit user could use? BIM 360 is more of just like a file sharing and collaboration thing. It doesn't really generate files itself. You might be able to export some things, but I haven't really used it. I've just seen some of the documentation that's coming from Autodesk. It seems more of the collaboration tool and file sharing. So you would really be having to upload whatever the other side or whoever you're collaborating with would need. Then there was one, how does the added values to the libraries and the customizing of the title blocks work with the remote networking setup? So what we'll end up doing in these classes with like the content center and then also maybe the template one, we use a separate Inventor project file separate from what you're using. And actually in the case of the template one, we actually have a separate design data directory that you're not messing with any of the things that you're using right now. So by the fact that we create a separate custom content center library, your Inventor IPJ determines which libraries that your project is able to pull from. So since we'll be using a specialized one for that course, the library we create will only be available to that project, unless you decide to turn it on for your normal one, which that's completely up to you. And then again, for the template one, we create our own project file, and then it has its own specific directory for the templates and for the style library. So anything we do will not affect what you have for your normal working. So don't think, oh man, because it's remote, I'm going to screw up everything that I've got set up right now. We've kind of put all the thought into it to make sure that doesn't happen to you. So there's one here. Is there somewhere where I could find a full list of what classes you're offering, or the ones that have been noted, the only ones available for now? So basically, Jared, looks like you're going to our website. On our website,
so,
you can go ahead and talk about that.
Okay. Thank you. So on our website, if you find your way to our website, mesa-cad.com, as you can see there, and you find our training drop down, we have a course catalog that lists all the classes that we offer. And then if you go to our course schedule, you can see the ones that are actually on the schedule. These are, of course, public classes. We always offer some other options. You can see for March, we have the Nastran class coming up starting next week. If I jump over to April, here's where you can see, okay, we have some essentials classes for Inventor and AutoCAD. Here are Steve's contents, the Customizing Inventor Content Center, and his Inventor templates classes. And here's my simulation and a half day. And over here on the May side is where I can find what's scheduled for May. Yeah. Right from here, I can go ahead and click the enroll option, and that's going to initiate an email to actually Steve to get you scheduled on the training. Yeah. Also wanted to point out while I'm here, we have the WebNet information that we talked about, or Steve talked about. So again, if you're in PA and you wanted to look in that WebNet information, you can find it here. For the other states, I believe we're going to be adding that to our website soon.
Yeah, I've asked Dylan to add that to our webpage. I think he's probably just has to figure out what kind of format that should look like. So, yeah.
And one more place to look, I brought up our MESA LinkedIn page. We're going to be starting using this more and more to announce our classes. We've used it over the last couple of days to announce this webinar. Some of you may have seen that and enrolled in the webinar through there. So if you're not already connected to our MESA LinkedIn page and you have a LinkedIn, go ahead out there and connect to it, follow it, I guess is the term LinkedIn uses. And you'll be able to see the announcements for the new classes coming and what's going on.
Yeah, MESA also does have a Facebook account, so we've been posting some things there as well that we've been a little bit lax. And unfortunately, Christy, who is our main social media guru, is out on maternity leave, so it's great for her. She's getting some time with her new child. However, Jared and I are now trying to get as many things on our social media. Hopefully we can get a few more things on there over the time as time progresses here. We have a couple more questions we didn't get a chance to answer. So we did get one piece of feedback saying that Inventor Advanced user classes would be great. We do have the advanced part in the advanced assembly classes. Those can be found in our course catalog and on our training website. If there's something that's not in one of those courses that you're looking for, feel free to reach out to us. One thing that MESA does do that you may not be aware of is that we can build custom courses. If if you're part of a group that's like there's 3 or 4 of you, we can definitely customize any kind of courseware. You can say, hey, I want to learn a little bit about multi-body part, but I also want to learn about iMates, and I also want to learn about iParts. We can build something specific to that for your company if necessary. And then see, one of the questions was asking like the templates and things that we customize, can those be shared? So anything that we create during those classes, those will be initially set locally, but you do have the ability of then copying those and moving those into where you're sharing your Inventor project file. So as long as they're shared by the project file that everyone's sharing, in either the template directory or the style directory, wherever that might be, those can be added, and so everybody can leverage those. If you create something that's like, man, this is what my company needs, by all means, it can be moved into your normal directory for working. And then there was one other question here about after taking a class, would we have access to recordings? We don't always record everything, so but if we have a request to record a class, we can definitely do that and try to make sure that is shared. But yeah, that is I think that's all the questions. And Jared, anything else you can think of, or anything that we haven't shared?
No, I think that covers everything.
Okay. Yeah, and if you guys get some inspiration for a class you'd like to see after the fact, Jared is sharing our email addresses there on the screen. I recognize a lot of the names in attendance here, so chances are you probably already had these, but if you don't, feel free to shoot us an email later on if you say, hey, I really thought of a great idea for a class that would really help me out. By all means, please let us know, because what we have found out over time is if you say, hey, I really could use this, this could really help me out, lots of times we find, man, that could probably help out a bunch of people. And there's our large assembly management class actually came about because one customer said, I need to know how to use this. And it was such a good class for like, man, we're going to take out their models, put in some more generic ones, and it looks like it would be a good class generically. And that's kind of how that course came about. So maybe you could be the inspiration for another MESA course.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Just
thank
so we
you.
want to say thank you for attending, for coming up today and listening to us. We are going to be doing this webinar all over again next week. So if you really liked it and you want to see it again, feel free to register for that one too. Or if you know somebody who you want to get them to see what we're doing, definitely let them know that we are redoing this webinar next Wednesday, same time, 10 a.m. Other than that, thank you very much. We appreciate your time, your feedback, and any questions that you had. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.